It's 20 minutes past 11. You are listening to the mid-morning talk on Salam Media with me, Mari Mukonda. In South Africa, there is a high incidence of burn injuries. The root causes of this needs to be addressed, but just simply being aware of the risks is enough to increase vigilance and prevention. South Africa has a particularly high rate of childhood burns, with as many as 1,300 burn-related deaths each year. And this incidence peaks in the winter months. The 6th to the 12th of May marks National Burns Awareness Week. And to tell us more, we have Bronwen Jones, who is the founder of Children of Fire. Good morning, Bronwen, and thank you for joining me.
Good morning to you and your listeners. Good morning.
Thank you. And I see, Bronwen, you have Gugu with you. Gugu is it's Gugu's birthday, and she turns 14, and she's also a burn survivor. Happy birthday to you, Gugu, and may you have many more happy returns and an awesome day.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so Bronwen, winter will soon be upon us, and unfortunately, we'll be seeing a rise in burn cases, especially amongst children. How can we reduce these cases?
There are so many ways to try and reduce injury. I think number one is to not leave your children alone. And that is very hard for poor parents who have to go to work and can't always access reasonable childcare. So then we need to build up relationships with our neighbors. But in addition to not leaving children alone, we should please not give children the tasks that adults should do. So children should not be cooking food for younger siblings or for themselves. And people again will say maybe, but I want my child to have hot food and I've got to go to work. Well, there are many inventions out there that you can replicate. So, for example, if you cook a saucepanful of rice and it has just boiled, you can then turn it off and you can put it in something called a hot bag, which is basically layers of aluminium foil inside cloth. And you do it up with a button and a bit of thread, and it continues to cook inside the foil-lined bag. And then your child is nowhere near a stove, so they're not going to handle paraffin, they're not going to handle matches, but they will still get hot food.
All right. So now, who is most at risk of becoming victims of burns?
Age 1 to 4, any demographic. Black, white, rich, poor, any country in the world, because it's at that age that children explore and they don't understand danger. So your little 2-year-old has started to walk and he's finding his way around the bathroom or the kitchen, somewhere like that, and he reaches up to a hot pot and he thinks that's interesting and he pulls the handle and the pot of water or milk, it goes over his face, his chest, his dominant arm, and that can be a horrendous life-changing injury. So age 1 to 4, everywhere. Don't leave them alone and don't leave them anywhere near the cooking.
Mm-hmm. And I find that sometimes as parents, we like to glorify or we'll joke about it when a child manages to reach for something that is dangerous, like a hot pot or kettle, and we're like, oh yeah, you are growing now, etc., etc. And that would be because that pot was probably cold at that time. But what happens when the pot is hot the next time, and there won't be any joking or laughing matter anymore, but it will be a serious injury caused to the child. So what are some of the mistakes that we make as parents that we can also avoid?
I think we must always use devices for what they're intended for. So I've seen people take the front of a bar heater and put peanuts on it to roast them. A heater is not a cooker. So let's use heaters as heaters. Then when you buy an oil-filled electric radiator, it will say on it, do not cover or do not cover with clothes. But what do people do when they're in a hurry? They put their damp clothes on the radiator because they want to quickly dry them before they wear them. And then something happens. The phone rings, or they go out, or they forget they've left it on, and then things catch alight. So yeah, use your heaters as heaters, following instructions, and don't use things for other purposes.
Mhm. Let's talk a little bit about burn treatments. Are burn treatments improving, and what treatments are currently available in the country?
Every year there's a new idea, a new medicine, a new dressing, but some of the ideas have existed for hundreds of years. The idea, for example, if you're in a very poor setting, say you were in Central Africa and nowhere near a hospital, you might use honey to protect a wound site. Then quite a lot of people want to use silver dressings these days. They're rather expensive, and silver is good, but not long term on a wound. Otherwise, you build up some resistance to it. But the initial treatment of a burn is cold, clean, running water over the burn for quite a few minutes, and then as quickly as possible to the clinic or the hospital. And then there are other things like there's a South African invention, the burn shield, which is a dressing. It usually comes, is about the size of someone's hand, the most common size. And you unwrap the foil packet and you put it on when you're burned. And it's full of tea tree oil, and it's cold and soothing and antiseptic. And then you can travel to the hospital or the clinic. There are larger size burn shields that they can put over full body injuries if you have them. Some ambulances have those. But the treatment and the hospitals, they vary a lot across the country. You need to get to a good hospital very quickly. So if you're lucky enough to live in Cape Town, you can go to the Red Cross Children's War Memorial Hospital, age 0 to 12, and you will get extremely good treatment. Elsewhere in the country, it's extremely variable as to how well you will get medical help.
Mhm. Now, you spoke about water being one of the easiest way to treat burn wounds. And now, do things like flour and corn flour and other home remedies, do they work?
No, they'll nearly always make things much worse. So people
Mhm.
do, I'm sorry to say, really stupid things. They will put on toothpaste, please don't. They will put on shoe polish, they will put on brasso, they will put on eggs. The salmonella risk is rather high there. If you put on butter on a burns wound, think, you put butter on a chicken if you wanted to cook more quickly in the oven. So you're going to put butter on your burns wound, you're going to make your burns wound cook.
Mhm. Mhm. Wow, there's so much that we still need to learn. Tell us about the Children of Fire and the work that you do.
Okay. Children of Fire has been helping burn children for more than a quarter of a century now. And it began with Dora. Dora lost her face and hands in a shack fire, and she was taken to three different hospitals that turned her away because they assumed that she would die. She eventually got admitted to the Far East Rand Hospital, and they still assumed that she would die. So they probably tried to ease her pain, but they didn't necessarily give her the treatment to think this kid may live, let's do our best by her. And I got to know Dora when she was still a baby, and she had a hole in her skull. She was missing her nose, her lips were burned away, her eyelids were gone, her fingers were gone, and she was also burned on her chest. And I went to visit her with Tristan, my son, and Toberga, and we had no big plan other than realizing that this child had no one. She'd been abandoned, and that she needed some sort of support that she would consider to be something like family. And then a nurse called Marina Rolls phoned me up one day, and she said, they're going to cut out her eyes. And I said, why would they do that? And she said, because the dressings are too expensive. And I said, no, that's not okay. And so I started a bit of a battle with the doctors. And the short version of that is they basically said, well, do you think you can do better? Here you are. You take over. And I thought, my goodness, here I am. I'm white and I'm foreign and I'm not a doctor. And what am I meant to do? But I wrote an article in the Times of London, which I thought was a newspaper that surgeons would be most likely to read because it has a fairly educated readership. And people came forward to help. Dr. Richard Collin was one of them from Moorfields Eye Hospital, and he took skin from each side of Dora's neck and he put it over her eyes as sort of replacement eyelids to at least preserve what was underneath.
Mm-hmm.
And then over the subsequent years, Dora went through well over 40 operations to rebuild her as best as we could, bit by bit. A wonderful surgeon, John Clark, reconstructed her lips after a fashion from skin of her back. And through all the knowledge that we gained from Dora, then all the other children just started to come. And they continue to come, like Google here next to me. Google was burned September 2020 when she was cooking food for her younger sister, and the paraffin stove exploded and hurt her. And now Gugu is with us, and we may be helping her with further high school education, and we may help her to try and get, for example, a prosthetic ear attached where she's lost one at the side of her head, which is quite expensive and quite difficult. And there's only 4 people in the whole of South Africa can even make these ears. So that all came because of Dora's bravery to survive. Dora is now adopted as my daughter, and she is 27 years old.
Wow, that's amazing. I'd like to talk about the effects of burns and how does it affect a child in the long run. But we're going to take a quick break and we will continue thereafter.
Your eyes are going all over the place, and this is being recorded and going on the internet.
Spices, pure, aromatic, and well seasoned. Spices to tantalize your taste buds. From creative cuisines to gastronomical gourmet goodies. From exotic odors to traditional dishes. Osman's Taj Mahal have remained synonymous with quality spices and condiments. Taj Mahal rice, beans, and lentils. Try our range of chili bite mixes, rose and ilachi syrup, our quick and easy biryani pack, and our traditional range of spice blends. Osman's Taj Mahal. There is no substitute for quality.
From the townships of South Africa, the refugee camps in Syria, or orphanages in Yemen, the eyes of the needy speak volumes with just one glare. We know what it's like to be at ground zero, with food essentials, clothing and blankets, fresh water portal trucks, and even on-site navigators. We use every cent to better their tomorrow. Become part of our journey to bring relief to all. Go to www.ashrafulaid.org or call us on 011-809-8181. Ashraful Aid, under the auspices of Maulana Suhail Wadi.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
Welcome back. You are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media, and still with me is Bronwen Jones, the founder of Children of Fire, taking us through burn safety, burn health, and burn awareness, as May is Burn Awareness Month. Bronwen and Gugu, thank you for staying on the line. Now, I'd like to know about the long-term effects that burns have on children.
I think Google can chip in her opinion in a moment, but the long-term effect from what I've observed over all these years, it depends as much upon the child as upon their own family as to how they cope with it. Because there can be a lot of name calling, and that will reduce a child's confidence. If they have a good school, then the school will talk to the other pupils and make sure people don't call them horrible names. But for our social interaction, what we most commonly use are our faces and our hands. So if, for example, you can't shake hands with someone easily because you've lost your hand or it's very damaged or they recoil, we have to coach the children through this as to how they deal with the negative comments and move forward in life. I wonder if Gugu is brave enough to tell us what's happened since she got burned.
At school,
Mm-hmm.
they're not criticizing me or do anything. They're just, well, that I got burned and they accepted it. It's nothing bad.
But what Google has found sometimes is on public transport, people might stare a bit much or be a bit mean. Has that happened?
Not quite a lot.
Okay, she's evidently in a nice community. We have a vendor burn survivor, Andani Umpapuli, and he had an extra problem in that he was intentionally burned by his one-time stepfather. So 1 in 3 of the youngsters that we have been burned on purpose. And that is a very difficult thing to think through in your life as to why someone would actually want to hurt you so badly or even to kill you. So you get psychological problems from that and obviously a dramatic lack of confidence. But Andani's teachers at his school in the Sibasa area near Toyando, they used to call him, in Shivenda, they used to call him corpse and ghost. So adults are diabolical. It's not just children that call names. So the long-term effects are on people's self-esteem, difficulties in the job market, difficulties in relationships. And with our organization, we try and remind the kids they're superheroes. They're the bravest of the brave. They have survived fire. So they're much tougher than the rest of the population. And a lot of your listeners or viewers, they can look at their face in the mirror and they can draw a line down the middle and pretty well see that one side matches the other side. How boring is that? With our burn survivors, they have a face that tells a story of great courage, sometimes of great pain, but as I say, they have survived. They are not victims, they are survivors.
Indeed, a story of survival. Bronwen, we don't have too much time on our hands, but would you like to share your contact details of how people can get a hold of the organization should they wish to know more?
Sure. If people look at our website, www.firechildren.org, at the bottom of the homepage are our phone numbers, our email address, and so on. I have a quite archaic phone which doesn't do WhatsApp, but if people ring 011-726-6529, we will always give advice. We can tell them what to do, at the scene if something bad has happened. And people can come and volunteer with us, and sometimes their children can come and live with us while they go through some surgery, which also we arrange in other countries sometimes. We've taken like a boy that was burned by rebels in Sudan, and we took him to Tunisia for surgery, and we've taken a little South African boy burned at just 6 weeks old all the way to Switzerland to get a new forehead built from his ribs. So our reach is worldwide, and if anyone wants to spare lotto millions or something, please could they give us some?
All right. I'm sure there will be some generous people out there. Thank you so much for your time, Bronwen and Gugu, for sharing your story and for giving us a little bit more insight into what you do. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Be safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye. That was Bronwen Jones, the founder of Children of Fire. If you would like to know more, visit their website, www.firechildren.org. It's on the screen right now, and you can share all your information, questions, or suggestions or comments. And if you would like to give them a call, you will find all the contact details on their website. It is 11:40. Do stay with us. We will be right back.